All right, we're here talking about solving quadratic equations. Today we're going to be talking about level 2. So if you haven't seen the video on level 1, you should go check that out. Right, it leads right into this one. So if you've seen level 1 already, then you should recognize that we do have a perfect square here. Right, we've got the quantity of x minus 2 squared, right, equals 25. So we can still apply the geometry of the square, right, that symmetry of a square, to know that, well, in this case, the side length is x minus 2, and the other side length is also x minus 2. And what we have is an area of 25. Well, what is it that we know that has a square that has an area of 25? Well, we've got a couple of options, right? What we're used to is positive 5 and our negative 5, right? And so we can set up two equations here, right? X minus 2 is equal to positive 5, or x minus 2 is equal to negative 5. Okay, and so we have these two equations. We'll solve each of them by adding 2. Over here we get x equals 7, or x equals negative 3. Okay, now those are going to be the two equations that we get if we again follow the standard method of taking a square root here. Okay, again leading to x minus 2 equals 5 and x minus 2 equals negative 5. Here's a practice problem. Go ahead and pause the video and take a second and solve that. Okay, so again, trying to get it into the same form as the last one, as something squared, right? So that we can take advantage of that symmetry of a square. We'll go ahead and subtract 15 from both sides. So we've got the quantity of x plus 4 squared equals 20. Okay, so again, we apply this idea of the symmetry of the square to know that we have that x plus 4 is the side length of our square, and the side length is also, well, the area is 20. So we're looking for the number that multiplies by itself to give us 20. That's the square root of 20. Now, if you're worried about reducing radicals, you can, again, find another video about reducing radicals. I'm just going to leave it as positive square root of 20 and negative square root of 20. Okay, again, that's the exact same thing that we're going to get if we go ahead and take the square root here. Okay, we end up with x plus 4 equals the square root of 20, or x plus 4 equals negative square root of 20. Right? We get x equals negative 4 plus the square root of 20, or x equals negative 4 minus the square root of 20. Okay. Again, those two equations are the exact same ones that we would set up by using that symmetry. Okay, they lead to the same place. Here's another example. Take a second, pause, try it on your own. Okay. So we'll go ahead and divide both sides by negative 3. And we end up with x plus 1 squared equals negative 4. Now again, if you're worried about taking advantage of the symmetry of the square, we don't have to worry about that. Okay, because if we think broadly about the side lengths, right, we still have x plus 1 as our side length. And now we have, an area of negative 4. Okay, so we've got two numbers that multiply by itself to give us negative 4. That's an imaginary number, right? So, right, we're looking at the square root of 4, or square root of negative 4, which is going to give us positive 2i and negative 2i. Again, if you're not up on your imaginary numbers, you want to take a look at a video about that. Okay. So then we have our two equations, right? X plus 1 equals positive 2i. Okay. Or x plus 1 equals negative 2i. Subtracting 1 in each case, we get negative 1 plus 2i, or x equals negative 1 minus 2i. All right. Oops. Last one for level 2. Go ahead and pause it, take a second, solve it. So we'll go ahead and multiply both sides by 14. Right? So we get x minus 8 quantity squared equals, okay, and even without knowing what the value is, right, we know we can still take advantage of this symmetry because we have the x minus 8 quantity squared. Right? So we get the side lengths of our square as being x minus 8. And the square root of 1,764. We've got 42. Okay. So a square with area 1,764 has side lengths 42 or negative 42, and that leads us to the two equations. X minus 8 equals 42, or x minus 8 equals negative 42. Again, the same two equations that pop up from taking the square root here. We add 8 to both sides, x equals 50, or x equals negative 34. Okay. All right, now go ahead and try the practice on your own, and then come to Zoom with questions.